Dr. Ethan Hayes, 58 years old. On April 22nd, I had a massive heart attack in my study and died. For over 30 years, I was a professor of theology. My specialty was eschatology, the study of end times. I wrote books about it, I lectured on it. I knew every theory about the rapture, pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib. I could debate the meaning of a single Greek word in the book of Revelation for hours. My life was about finding the answers, about piecing together God's divine calendar. But what I learned in the 23 minutes that my heart was stopped showed me I wasn't just wrong. I was asking the wrong questions entirely. It was late, close to midnight. My wife, Clara, had already gone up to bed. I was working on a new lecture, surrounded by my commentaries and my notes. The house was quiet. So quiet you could hear the old wood settling. I remember the smell of old paper and leather from my books. It was a smell I loved, a smell I associated with safety, with knowledge. I reached for my favorite commentary on the book of Daniel. And then it happened. It wasn't like in the movies. There wasn't a dramatic clutching of my chest. It was a sharp, crushing pressure, like an invisible giant had wrapped his fist around my heart and was squeezing. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't call out. My vision started to swim, the words on the page blurring into meaningless shapes. I remember one thought, clear as a bell, cutting through the pain. So this is it. I slid from my chair. My head hit the thick wool rug with a dull thud. The pain was immense, but then, just as quickly as it came, it started to fade. It was like a radio station being tuned out. The static of the pain grew fainter and fainter until all that was left was silence. A deep, profound silence I had never known on earth. And then I realized I wasn't on the floor anymore. I was floating, gently, near the ceiling of my own study. I looked down and saw my body, me, sprawled on the floor, my glasses askew, one hand still reaching for the book that had fallen beside me. There was no fear. That was the strangest part. I should have been terrified. But all I felt was a strange sense of detachment, of peace. I saw the door to my study creak open. It was Clara. Her face was full of sleep, a question on her lips. Then she saw me. Her expression, it broke me. The peaceful feeling shattered for a moment, and all I felt was her pain. I saw her rush to my side, her hands shaking as she pulled her phone from her robe. I could hear her voice, thin and terrified, screaming my name, screaming at the 911 operator. I wanted to reach out. I wanted to tell her, I'm okay. I'm right here. But I had no voice. I had no hands. I was just awareness, a silent observer to the shipwreck of my own life. I watched the paramedics rush in. I watched them work on my body. I heard them say things like no pulse and asystole. I knew what that meant. From my earthly mind, I knew I was dead. But I had never felt more alive. The scene in my study began to grow dim, like a theater light slowly fading to black. The sounds of my wife's crying, the urgent voices of the paramedics, they all receded. It wasn't scary. It was like I was drifting away on a gentle, invisible river. The darkness wasn't empty, it was full. It was full of a presence, a feeling. I wasn't moving through a tunnel. It wasn't like that. It was more like the world I knew was dissolving, and something else, something more real, was taking its shape around me. A light began to grow in the distance. Not a bright, blinding light. It was a warm, golden light, like the first ray of dawn, but a billion times more beautiful. And the light had a feeling. It felt like home. It felt like every good memory, every moment of true joy, every time I had ever felt loved, all woven together into a single, overwhelming sensation. The light grew brighter and brighter, and as it did, I felt myself being drawn toward it. I wasn't floating anymore. I was being welcomed. Then, the light took on a form. It's so hard to explain with human words. It wasn't a man with a beard and a white robe, not like in the paintings. The form was made of the light itself, yet it was distinctly a person, And I knew, with a certainty that went deeper than all my years of study, deeper than my own bones, I knew who it was. It was Jesus. He didn't speak, not at first. He just looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw everything. I saw my entire life, not like a movie, but all at once. My birth, my first steps, the day I met Clara, the birth of our son Josh. I saw every secret I ever kept, every moment of pride, every selfish thought, every time I chose intellect over love. I braced myself for judgment, for shame, for the condemnation I knew I deserved. As a scholar of the Bible, I knew the standard of holiness. I knew how far I had fallen short, but there was no judgment in his eyes. There was only love, a love so pure, so absolute, so unconditional, it felt like a tidal wave, washing over the deepest parts of my soul. It washed away the pride. It washed away the fear. It washed away the shame. I felt completely known and completely, utterly loved. Tears that I couldn't physically cry streamed down my spirit. I was undone. All my degrees, all my books, all my debates, they were like a child's sandcastles next to this ocean of pure love. Finally, he spoke. His voice wasn't an audible sound that entered my ears. It was a thought, a feeling, that bloomed directly in the center of my being. It was a voice that was more real than any sound I had ever heard. And it was full of a gentle humor. "Ethan," he said, his voice a melody of grace, "you have spent so much time trying to read my calendar." I didn't know what to say. I was a professor, a man of words, but I had none. All I could feel was my foolishness. I I just wanted to understand. I managed to think, my spiritual voice trembling. I wanted to know the truth. "I am the truth," he replied, the love in his voice deepening. "The truth is not a date, it is a person. You studied the map so intently that you forgot to get to know the one who drew it." He beckoned me closer. The world around us shifted. Suddenly, we were standing in a place that looked like a vast old workshop. It was filled from floor to ceiling with clocks, thousands of them. Grandfather clocks, cuckoo clocks, tiny pocket watches, modern digital clocks, and they were all ticking, but in chaos. Some were too fast, some were too slow. The noise was a confusing jumble of ticks and tocks and chimes, all out of sync. "What is this place?" I asked. "This is humanity's attempt to understand my time," Jesus said, gesturing to the chaos. "Each clock is a theory, a denomination, a prophecy chart, a book, a debate. See how they all run on their own time? See how much energy is spent winding them, fixing them, arguing over which one is correct?" He was right. I saw people, shadowy figures, running frantically between the clocks, adjusting gears, polishing brass, arguing with each other. I recognized myself among them, a younger version of me, pointing furiously at one clock, insisting it was the right one. Then, Jesus led me to the center of the room. There, on a simple wooden pedestal, was a single timepiece. It wasn't ornate or fancy. It was a simple, beautiful clock with a clean, clear face. Its hands moved with a silent, steady, perfect rhythm. It was the only source of true order in the entire room. "This is my time," he said softly. "It is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a reality to be trusted. My Father is the clockmaker. You are not called to be the repairman. You are called to trust him." The weight of his words settled on me. My whole academic career, all the frantic searching for clues and timelines, I had been trying to repair a clock whose workings I could never possibly understand. Then the scene dissolved. The workshop of clocks faded away, and we were standing on a hill overlooking a massive field of wheat. The field stretched as far as the eye could see, under a sky that was neither day nor night, but a beautiful, eternal twilight. "The harvest," I whispered, recognizing the biblical imagery. "Yes," Jesus said, his voice filled with a deep, profound ache. The harvest. You and so many others are so eager for the day of the harvest. You look for the signs. You pray for me to come quickly. He pointed out across the field. I looked closer. Some of the wheat was beautiful and golden, ripe and ready, but so much of it was still green. Some stalks were small and fragile, just beginning to grow, and in some patches the wheat was withered and dying, being choked by weeds. I saw dark, bird-like creatures, shadowy and horrible, swooping down, plucking seeds from the soil before they could even sprout, and pecking at the weakest stalks. The timeline of the rapture, the final harvest, is not determined by a date on a calendar, Jesus said, his voice thick with emotion. It is determined by the harvest. My Father is a patient farmer. His heart breaks for every single stalk that is not ready. He waits, with a love you cannot comprehend, for the last possible grain of wheat to ripen. He looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw the pain of that waiting, the pain of every soul that was lost. Would you have me rush the harvest, Ethan? He asked gently. Would you have me come now and leave all of these behind? The question pierced me. In all my studies, in all my debates about timelines and tribulations, I had never once truly considered the heart of God behind it. I saw it as a grand cosmic event, a puzzle. I had forgotten about the people, the souls, the ones who were still green, the ones being attacked by the enemy. No, I whispered, shame and awe mixing in my heart. No, Lord, I wouldn't. Your focus has been on the when, he said. I need it to be on the who. The field of wheat faded, and a new vision appeared. This one was the most shocking of all. It was the modern world. I saw it all at once, in a dizzying flash. I saw people everywhere, millions of them. They were in their homes, in their cars, at work, and nearly every single one of them was holding a small, glowing rectangle, a phone. I saw them scrolling, endlessly scrolling. Their faces were blank, illuminated by the cold blue light. I saw what they were watching. Angry news clips that made their hearts bitter. Arguments in comment sections. People who called themselves believers were tearing each other apart over politics, over doctrine, over foolish things. I saw Christians arguing fiercely, not with unbelievers, but with other Christians about the very thing I had studied my whole life, the rapture. Their words were full of pride and anger. You're a heretic, one typed. You're misleading the flock, wrote another. And as they typed, as they scrolled, as they consumed the anger and the division, I saw something else. I saw a thin, gray, smoky veil forming over their hearts. With every angry comment, every minute wasted in a pointless digital fight, the veil grew thicker. It was making them deaf. It was making them blind to the real spiritual world around them. The dark, bird-like creatures I had seen in the field were here too. They weren't grand, terrifying demons from a horror movie. They were small, whispering things. They perched on people's shoulders, whispering into their ears. You're right, they're wrong. Be angry. That post is an attack on you. You need to defend yourself. Your opinion is what matters most. Jesus stood beside me, his heart breaking as we watched. This, Ethan, is the enemy's master plan for the final generation, he said, his voice low and urgent. It is not a great, obvious evil that will deceive the world. It is this, the great distraction. He has found a way to keep my people so busy, so angry, so divided, and so distracted by things that do not matter, that they forget their first love. They forget me. He pointed to a man furiously typing an essay in a comment section about why the rapture had to be pre-tribulation. The man's face was red with anger. The smoky veil over his heart was thick. Outside his window, his lonely, hurting neighbor was getting into his car, his shoulders slumped in despair. The Christian man never even looked up. The enemy doesn't need to make you sin, Jesus said, looking at me. He just needs to make you busy. He keeps my church arguing about the seating chart for the wedding feast, so that they forget to go out into the streets and invite the guests. The greatest sign of the end times is not a war or a rumor of war. It is a loss of love. A church that has a perfect timeline but has lost its love for the lost is of no use to me. The vision shattered me. I saw my own life, the hours I had spent in my study debating fine points of theology, while my own son Josh was drifting away from the faith. I had all the answers, but I had failed to show him the love of the one I was studying. You see now? Jesus asked. His voice wasn't condemning. It was the voice of a loving father trying to show his child a vital truth. Yes, I cried, the spiritual tears flowing freely. I see, I've wasted so much time. No time spent seeking me is ever wasted, he corrected gently. But your knowledge was incomplete. It was a skeleton without a heart. Now you have the heart. I felt a love for the people in the vision so intense it was painful. I wanted to scream at them. Wake up, look away from the screen. Look at each other, look at him. I looked at Jesus, at his face made of pure love and light. The thought of leaving this place, of going back to that world of noise and distraction and pain, was unbearable. Please, I begged him. Please let me stay. I don't want to go back. I just want to be with you. He smiled, a smile that contained all the comfort in the universe. He placed a hand on my shoulder. It wasn't a physical hand, but I felt its warmth, its reality, go right through me. The harvest is still plentiful, but the workers are few, he said. Your work is not finished, Ethan. Your knowledge was not for nothing. But now it must be shared with a new heart. My heart. He looked deep into my soul. Go and tell them. Tell them to stop looking at the calendar and start looking at the field. Tell them to put down their phones and pick up their cross. Tell them to stop fighting with their brothers and start fighting for the lost. Tell them the timeline is not a secret to be decoded, but a love story to be entered into. Tell them, I am waiting, not for a date, but for my children to come home. The pain of leaving him was the worst pain I had ever felt. It was a holy agony. I wanted to cling to him, to stay in that perfect peace forever. I will be with you, he promised. You will not be alone. And then the light began to fade. The feeling of his presence started to recede. It was like being pulled backward, away from everything good and true. The beautiful twilight sky of heaven dissolved, and I felt a shocking, violent jolt. A gasp. My own gasp. It was loud and ragged in my ears. I felt a fiery pain in my chest, a million times worse than the heart attack itself. It felt like I'd been kicked by a horse. My eyes fluttered open. The light was blinding. It wasn't the warm, golden light of heaven. It was a harsh, fluorescent light. I saw blurry figures in blue scrubs leaning over me. We've got a rhythm, someone shouted. He's back. I tried to speak, but all that came out was a dry, croaking sound. I was in a hospital room, an ICU. Machines were beeping all around me, a frantic, chaotic rhythm so different from the perfect silence of heaven. A tube was in my throat. My body ached with an exhaustion so deep it felt like it was in my bones. And I wept. I wept uncontrollably, not for joy at being alive, but for the grief of having left. I had just been in the presence of pure love, and now I was back in this broken, hurting world. Later, after they'd stabilized me, Clara was allowed in. Her eyes were red and swollen, but when she saw me awake, a look of such relief washed over her face that it took my breath away. She held my hand, her grip so tight. You were gone, Ethan, she whispered, her voice choked with tears. The doctor said you were gone for 23 minutes. My doctor, a kind but very practical man named Dr. Matthews, came in later. He looked at my chart, then at me, then back at my chart. He shook his head slowly. I'm not a man who uses the word miracle often, Professor Hayes, he said, pushing his glasses up his nose. But for you to have been down for that long, with no electrical activity in your heart, and to wake up with zero brain damage, I can't explain it. Medically, it just doesn't happen. I knew he couldn't explain it, but I could. I had been with the author of life itself. I'm telling you my story today not to scare you, but to wake you up. For 30 years, I was a respected Christian scholar. I thought I knew so much, but I was asleep. I was distracted. I'm here to tell you that heaven is real, and the spiritual battle we are in is real. But it's not what you think it is. The enemy is not trying to beat you in a theological debate. He is trying to get you so addicted to distraction, so filled with anger and pride about being right, that your heart grows cold. Jesus is coming back. That is a promise. But he revealed to me that our obsession with when has become the enemy's greatest tool to keep us from being ready. So I'm asking you, the person watching this right now, to do something. Put down the phone. Stop arguing in the comment sections. Forgive that person you've been holding a grudge against. Look at the person next to you, your spouse, your child, your neighbor, and see them the way he sees them, as a precious soul he is waiting for. The question is not, are we in the end times? The question Jesus is asking all of us is, will you be a sign of my love to the times? He isn't waiting on a date, he's waiting on us. He's waiting on you.